we're going to look at how to dye fabric with avocado pits. So we're going to be naturally dyeing today. We're going to get a beautiful pink color. You can use this on fabric or clothing that's already made. If you'd like to learn how to do that, then just keep on watching. So I'm going to go over everything that we'll need for this in just a few moments, but I just wanted to show you the fabric I'm going to be using first. I've got this beautiful silk fabric which I'm using today. All the steps I'm going to be talking about today are mainly going to be about using silk fabric, because silk is quite a unique fabric to be using in dyeing. It's a protein fiber. Even though it's a natural fiber, it's not going to be the same as cotton or linen because those are cellulose fibers. Now I can go into all those kind of technical things in another video if you like, but basically there are protein fibers and there are cellulose fibers. The fiber I'm going to be using is a protein fiber. You need to keep that in mind because we're going to be using things that we add to the water or don't add to the water because we're using a protein fiber. This is the fabric I'm using today. It's just a white silk satin. What I am going to do is weigh exactly how much is here and then try and work out how many avocado pits I need to dye this whole thing. I'm going to guess and say there's about 3 to 5 meters of fabric here, but it's really light, so I'm just going to weigh it with my kitchen scales and then we'll know exactly how much avocado pits to fabric ratio we'll need today. Okay, so I've just weighed my fabric by putting it in the bowl, zeroing the scale, and then putting all the fabric in the bowl and weighing it basically. And it's about 1/4 kilo, so it's 244 grams. This silk is really fine and light, so it's quite a lot of meterage for that amount of weight. It's got a low GSM. So from what I've heard, the ratio for avocado pits to grams of fabric is about 15 to 20 pits per kilo. So I'm using 1/4 kilo, so it would be about 3 to 5 for me, but if you want a stronger color, the idea is that you use more avocado pits. Sam and I have been saving up these avocados for a while now, and I haven't counted, but there's definitely more than enough here. So I'm going to probably start with maybe 10 of these and see what color the water's looking like after a little while. Maybe I can add some more if I need to, and we'll see how we go from there. Normally when we're natural dyeing we would use some kind of mordant. Now the cool thing about avocado pits is they have tannin in them, which is the type of mordant that we would use for silk and protein fibers. So they've already got it built in. We really don't need to add anything else. The only thing that I might add is some bicarb soda, but I'll get into that in a little bit. You will need your fabric and a bowl for it to go in, some gloves or some tongs depending on how you're going to be handling your dyed fabric, some bicarb soda, and a large saucepan for dyeing. You will want to make sure this isn't one you're going to be using for cooking later. And of course, enough avocado pits for the weight of fabric you're dyeing. Just as a side note too, you can apparently use the skins of avocados and get the same results. If you want to do that, I would suggest freezing your avocado skins. With avocado pits, they dry out pretty well on the bench. Just make sure that you've cleaned off all the avocado because otherwise it'll go gross. I've also heard from other sources that it's good to freeze the avocado pits as well if it takes you a while to collect enough. Apparently over time, if they dry out, they might start losing some of that red color, but I don't know from experience yet, so let's just see what happens with these avocado pits. They've been on the bench for the last few weeks. We eat quite a lot of avocados here, so I'm really excited to see what color these bring us. So the very first thing I'm going to do is fill this bowl up with water over the fabric so that it can be soaking in some water. That's going to help the color when I do put this fabric into the dye. It's going to help it to all get around the fabric nicely. There'll be less chance of that, you know, slight mottled look where it's an uneven dye, it hasn't hit all the fabric evenly. If that's something you want, maybe skip this step, but there are other ways to kind of achieve that effect in a more planned way, I guess. I'm just going to fill this up with water and then we're going to get to the next step. Now I'm just pushing all the air bubbles out of the fabric to make sure there's no air bubbles once I put this into the dye. Now I'm just filling up a saucepan with water ready to start making the dye. Now I'm just adding in my avocado pits, and I've turned the stove onto low to start heating the water up. I started with about 12 or 13 avocado pits, but I did end up adding more later on. Then I'm just putting the lid on the saucepan and letting it heat up for a few hours, and then checking it to see how it's going, turning off the heat and leaving it to sit for a little while. I continued to do this over the next 48 hours, turning it on, turning it off, watching it change color, just testing it with a piece of paper towel and seeing how it turned out. Once it started getting towards the color I wanted, I decided to raise the pH of the water by adding some bicarb soda. I really just estimated how much I was putting in, and I'm going to show you later on why I did this and how it changes the color of the dye. But this part of the process really does take some trial and error. pH affects the color of a few different natural dyes in different ways, so just experiment. And now I'm just adding the last few pits that I decided to add to make things a bit darker. Alright, I've been leaving these pits to soak for about 48 hours now, and every now and then I just went and turned on the heat and left it for about an hour and then turned it off again, just really low, just trying to coax a bit more color out of those pits, but not overheating it because that might make it go brown. Can you hear Pepper sneezing? Pepper was interested in what we're doing. So what I'm going to do now is drain out the liquid through a sieve and try and get out all the little bits of pit and anything else like bits of dirt that might have ended up in the water. And then I'll put it back into the pot and we'll start actually dyeing our fabric. You might notice here I just leave a little bit of liquid in that pan just because it had bits in it that were slipping through the sieve. Now I'm going to show you guys the difference between making this dye more acidic or more alkaline. The cup on the left I added a teaspoon of bicarb soda to, so that made it more alkaline. And the one on the right I added white vinegar. And you can see that the one on the left is like a more red orangey color and the one on the right is more yellowy, so you can use that to your advantage depending on what color you're after when you're using natural dyes. But of course it's different for each kind of natural dye, and it's important to experiment first before you go dyeing your whole fabric unless you would like a surprise. Okay, and here's the moment we've all been waiting for. I'm finally going to be adding my fabric to the dye. So I'm just putting it in and kind of mixing it around with the tongs and making sure it's evenly coated. Of course I'm going to be coming back to this a few times and checking it and moving it around and trying to get that water moving as much as I can. And I've just turned the stove on low to start heating that dye back up again, and we'll start seeing some results soon. So once again I turned the heat on and let it sit and then turn it off again, and this is about 24 hours after I first put the fabric in the dye, and I think it's just about ready to take it out and rinse it. Depending on the type of fabric you have, you might decide to hand wash it now, but I've gotten into a habit of just putting my fabric straight into my washing machine and putting it on a really short gentle wash with some detergent to make sure that if I do make a garment out of this fabric, the color is going to be fast and the color is going to be what you get after you have washed it properly. Because the last thing I want is to have a piece that looks one color and then when you wash it, it changes color. So you might be sacrificing some color payoff at first, but at least what you're going to be left with is going to be the result that's going to last. One of the benefits of natural dyeing over regular chemical dyeing is that it's way better for our planet, and actually this dye in particular is great for watering your garden with once it's cooled down. Because I've added bicarb soda to it and it's more alkaline, my geraniums and my tomatoes actually really love this water. So feel free to use this on your garden, it's not going to harm it. And if anything, it's actually going to benefit those alkaline loving plants. And the final step is just going to be hanging this baby on the line. And of course you might need to steam or iron your fabric after that. But that's pretty much it. And how cute is this color? It'll go a little bit lighter when it dries, and I'll show you in a moment what it looks like when it's finished. Okay guys, so I've finished doing all the dyeing and the rinsing and the washing and everything. And this is the fabric that I'm left with now, and it's a beautiful shade of like peachy, nudie, rosy pink. I really like it actually. I feel like each time you do this kind of dyeing, it's possible it's going to come out a different color. You might be using different varieties of avocados, you might use a different amount. It could be that the fabric had a slight tone to it in the first place. But all in all, I'm super happy with this color. I'm going to make some wrap tops with this, I think, and send them down to my store in Melbourne. I worked out I really only have about 3 meters of this fabric, not up to 5 meters like I first thought I had. But that should mean I can make at least 2 or 3 tops out of it, hopefully. And I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I guess you'd call this like a blush. It's a really pretty light color for spring and summer. So I'm excited to see what the tops look like when they're done. I'll show you on Instagram if I do that eventually. And maybe with the scraps, I could make some scrunchies. Silk scrunchies would feel so nice, and these would be a really cute color too. Alright, so that's how you dye silk fabric with avocado pits. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you're able to follow along and do this yourself at home. And I'd love to see your results if you do this. Please tag me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @CarleyRoseStudio. And yeah, I'd really love to see that actually. And then also like what you make out of it after you dye your fabric. Or if you dye some clothes and then you wear them, like that'll look so cool. I think this is just such a pretty color, and it's actually like really on trend at the moment. I can't wait to see what you guys have made. Please do tag me. I really am looking forward to seeing that. And let me know in the comments if this was successful for you, or if you've had other results, or if you've got any tips that I've forgotten to include in this video. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you did find this tutorial useful, give this video a like and subscribe, because I'll be putting out a lot more tutorials over the next few months. Alright, thanks again for watching guys. I'll see you in the next one.